Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman. And my guest this week is Sarah, who grew up with a mother who was very intentional with feeding her family healthy food, and she cooked everything from scratch. So, as a child, Sarah didn't really have any exposure to sugar. And it wasn't until her late 30s, when she decided to do a popular elimination diet, that Sarah hit a wall with her physical pain and emotional pain that she had to learn to deal with. Part of her elimination diet involved cutting sugar. And in this episode, you'll hear how Sarah developed other coping skills than sugar or food. We'll get to our chat in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. Come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at MyLifeAfterSugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_LifeAfterSugar. Okay, let's get to my chat with Sarah. All right, so I'm here with Sarah today. And Sarah, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and your background with food and especially with sugar?
Absolutely. Netta, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. So my background is that I grew up with a mother who was very intentional with feeding us whole, healthy food. She cooked everything from scratch. We would come out of the health food store with boxes of stuff. We really did not have any exposure to sugar whatsoever. And I think because of that, I just there was no option for sugar in my life. And so I was neutral around food. I was neutral around food from my childhood all the way through my early adult life and into my, 30s. I just really, I had better things to do than worry or think about food. It was just never, I was neutral around it. And I had an experience that really changed that for me. And it was a very dramatic experience. When I was in my late 30s, I decided to do a popular elimination diet. And it was all the rage, and everyone was talking about the skin, the clear skin benefits and the increased energy and yada, yada. And I had no weight to lose at the time. I was a very healthy weight, but I wanted to see what the hype was about. And so I went on a 30-day elimination diet where I cut out categories of things. I cut out legumes and dairy and grains and certain fruit, certain starchy vegetables, of course, sugar. And that's fine. I think elimination diets have their place. So you can sort of eliminate or, decide what food sensitivities you have.
Sure.
But in my case, I didn't do it the right way. I continued my really strict workout regimen, and I found myself out and about with my kids, and I didn't have exactly what I needed to eat on hand. So I would frequently go without eating. And so that 30-day elimination diet put me in a calorie restricted state. I did not have what I needed food wise. And I came out of that when, so at the end of the 30 days, they say to reintroduce these things slowly so you can see how your body responds. And I found myself, Netta, for the first time in my life, totally out of control around food. I would try to introduce these things in my life by category, and instead everything was just, I was like, okay, I can eat again. And so I ate, for the first time in my life, I experienced binging,
Okay.
which was really traumatizing because I had not had any out of control feelings around food before. And I had no idea what was going on with me.
Mm.
And you add to that, around the same time, I started to question my relationship with alcohol. So within about a period of a year, I had gone from normal drinking, take it or leave it, to having a couple of drinks and then, ending up drinking more than I had planned. So waking up with hangovers. And I started to really question I'm a mother to young children. I cannot have this in my life. And so if any of your listeners struggle with alcohol, or if any of them have just even a question of like alcohol's role in their life, I recommend Annie Grace's This Naked Mind. It is amazing. I read it. I quit alcohol cold turkey. That was in 2019. And I have been alcohol free for 5 years, which
Wow.
is just amazing. I can't even tell you I could do a whole hour on just the benefits of being alcohol free. But during this period of time in my life, when alcohol left the building, it left a hole that sugar just stepped right into.
Yeah,
So
and
when
that, sorry to interrupt, well, that's
no,
more
it's
common. That really is more common than you would imagine.
yeah, it's almost like a transfer addiction. And whatever I used to celebrate or soothe or medicate or cope, now sugar had that full-time role, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think those things together really accumulated into this perfect storm of addiction that was just really powerful and really acute and really sudden, which was terrifying.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're saying that this was in your late 30s.
It was in my late 30s. It was in 2018. And I feel like, you asked me about my childhood, and though I did not have any problem with sugar as a child, I did have a problem dealing with pain. I had a problem with emotional pain and physical pain. My mom tells me that when I skinned my knee, I would take a nap. I literally could not persevere through pain. And I think once in my late 30s, I realized that there was something that could numb me. It was go time, because it made my addiction even stronger, because now I was like, okay, this can soothe me. So first alcohol, then sugar. So my sensitivity and just my emotional makeup really, I think, contributed to my addiction as well,
Hmm. Yeah.
So
And it's
that's the short version.
and what I find throughout my contact with people and stories like you just told is that um, it's rarely just about the food.
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
I can agree
so,
with
right, and it was the case for me. It's not that the food has nothing to do with it, but it's very often our difficulty. I can't say inability because we can learn, but
that.
it's our difficulty dealing with emotions that pushes a lot of us to try to numb those difficult or uncomfortable emotions with
Yeah.
fill in the blank, alcohol, sugar, name it.
Netta, it's so true. Withdrawal for me, when I finally realized that I was addicted to sugar and that it was stealing my life and my health, I was like, I can't abstain. I mean, I can't moderate it. I have to abstain from it. So the withdrawal was hard, but like you're saying, the real difficulty came in learning how to live without what I had used to cope for so long. And that is what I have such extreme gratitude for right now, because in this life, we cannot avoid pain, but we can choose how we deal with it. You
Exactly.
know, we can let it cripple us and try to numb it with our drug of choice, whether it be alcohol or sugar or drugs, or we can feel it and process it and live in a way that we don't look back and regret. Because if I hadn't tackled this, you know, as many years ago as I did, I would have so much regret right now for being in addiction that long.
Yes.
So We have a choice whether we numb the pain away or we figure out how to live, and it's possible and it's beautiful to choose living, unnumb, just
Absolutely.
choosing to feel everything. That's where the
Yeah.
beauty in life is.
Yeah, and it's tough if we didn't grow up with that or we
Yes,
weren't taught because people around us didn't know how to use other coping skills than sugar or than food. And how did you
exactly.
learn that?
Gosh, how did I learn it? I mean, it's still a process. I'm still learning it today, just really giving myself grace, first of all, and time under my belt. I feel like when I first started off in recovery, it was very up and down, up and down, up and down. I was like, oh my goodness. And you just really have to give yourself grace because soon the days add up, and that builds identity of someone who does what they say they're going to do. And before you know it, you're just not reaching for that food anymore when you have a hard moment or when you have a hard emotion or when the stress hits. You're all of a sudden doing something else. And it's almost like this redirect, that happens in your brain. It's a 404 arrow now. Like I'm not going that direction anymore. I'm going a different direction. It's automatic. But that definitely took time. We have to have time under our belt of making the same right choices over and over again and saying no. And it's hard, right? Think about it. The easy way is to self-soothe. It's the easy way, but really we have to self-care instead. And those two things are so different. Self-soothing is something that is not constructive. It's like, binging on Netflix or just distracting yourself. And then you get up and you're like, no better than you were when you sat down. I'm not any better after I eat that pie of ice cream. I still have the same problems, except now I'm further in my addiction now. But if I self-care instead and do something that is beneficial and productive, slowly that becomes my default,
Yeah,
and it becomes something that I do. And I know that you can relate to that because you've been
to-
sugar-free long enough to know that's how it works, slowly building
totally.
momentum.
And I often say that real life happens whether or not you eat sugar. And so just because you cut sugar doesn't mean that suddenly it's all rainbows and
Wow.
marshmallows, certainly not marshmallows, and that life suddenly becomes easy. No, actually, life is more in your face.
It is in your face.
Yeah, because you don't have, and I don't call it a coping skill, eating sugar. I call it numbing, like,
Yeah.
or avoiding difficult emotions that I also just call emotions
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
if
Life.
they might, yeah, it's life, sometimes life is difficult. So can you give us a
Yeah.
few examples of your self-care tools?
Oh, absolutely. So I have a really strong morning and evening routine. And it includes journaling, it includes prayer, it includes meditation. My faith in God is a huge fact. It's a huge motivator and a huge, it's powerful in my recovery. And I feel like really just starting my day off, having a routine that I do every single day really sets me up for, okay, I'm going to do the next right step after this. Does that make sense? It's kind of like what
Yeah,
you've heard the term, like you make up your bed every morning. You just
yeah,
do. Because when you make up your bed, you're telling yourself that you're going to be successful today and productive. That's exactly how I am with my morning routine and my journaling. And I have this process. Not everyone's a journaler, but a journaler or a writer, but I look back at my past journal entries from when I was really in the pit of addiction. And that's pretty powerful and motivating me because I don't ever want to go back there again. And when I read about how it used to be for me, how I would just be so, I mean, first of all, just the symptoms, the physical symptoms of my sugar addiction, the insulin resistance and the weight gain and the fatigue and the joint, the inflammation, the joint pain. I mean, the hot flashes, all these things that I thought were just getting older. This is just that part of life. They're not actually. We're supposed to thrive as we age. And looking back at my journal and seeing those things that used to be a reality in my life every single day, and then looking at where I am right now, thriving, no joint pain. I haven't had a hot flash in years.
Wow.
I'm getting older, not younger. How does that make sense?
Yeah.
Um, I just look at this stuff and I'm like, why would I ever go back to that life of addiction? And Netta, that's just the physical stuff. The spiritual, the emotional, the identity strengthening that I have given myself as a gift and my children. I think you and I have daughters that are similar ages. My daughter's
Mine's
12.
16.
Yeah,
16.
so they're very close. And I feel like us being strong in our identity, who we are, doing what we say we're going to do, being healthy physically, emotionally, mentally, that is an identity that I want to pass on to my daughter. If I can't get my identity straight, how can I help her get hers straight? You know,
Absolutely. Well, when we give birth, we become a role model, whether or not we want to.
you
And our
got it.
kids, I often say, our kids are watching us 24/7. Not what we say. In fact, they don't listen to what we say half the time,
Correct.
but they are watching what we do.
Yes.
And
100%. And so
100%.
much more closely than we even know. I'm like, they're so observant.
I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar.
So yeah, that's just some of my and then just the physical things like my food is just has to be on point, and we can talk about that if you want, like what I eat. And then my workouts are really important. And I tell people, because this is really true, I used to think that working out was to lose weight. Working out is not to lose weight. It really isn't. In fact, it can hamper your weight loss goals if you're not careful, because your body will demand more calories. Working out for me is for strengthening my bones, for strengthening my cognitive ability. I mean, it's so protective of our brains as we age. It is so good for us in every aspect. And it's part of myself, a huge part of my self-care. It is my mental health. I go to the gym for my mental health, and then I eat really well for my sanity and my weight maintenance. So those
Yeah,
are two separate things.
lovely. Yes, absolutely. I totally relate to that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you did mention, telling us a little bit about what you actually eat, which feels like a mystery for a lot of people. So could you
Yeah.
demystify what you eat in a typical day, a typical week, on vacation, on the weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny that you mentioned vacation. Let me tell you, Netta, in the past, when I was addicted to sugar, I would come back from vacation really not feeling great, you know, pounds heavier, not having spent the time that I wanted with my family, because when you're in addiction, it's actually isolation. Addiction is not connection. You just can't connect when you're addicted. So I would come back from vacation being so heavy and feeling really demoralized. Well, we just got back from 2 weeks in New England last Saturday. I am fitter than I was because I worked out up there. I am the same weight that I was because I ate the same that I usually do. And I am full to the brim of love and gratitude for the time that I had with my family, because guess what? I was present the whole time. I
Love
was present the whole time. So when you ask, what do I eat on vacation? What do I eat on the weekends? What do I eat, at home? It's all the same. It never changed. It never changes. And at first I was like, what? I'm never going to eat sugar again. Let me tell you something. That is an addict's thinking. I know that you know this. If your listeners are listening and they're like, oh my gosh, she doesn't ever eat sugar. Yeah, I never eat sugar. And guess what? It is a gift to myself. Because as soon as I eat sugar, I'm sabotaging myself. Everything goes to the wayside. Everything that I love, yeah. So anyway, what I eat is I have no sugar, which means no refined, no processed sugar. I do eat fruit, apples, berries, a banana every now and then, but frankly, whatever. I prefer apples. I will have protein. I will have meat protein, beans, lots and lots of vegetables, good fats like avocado and coconut oil and, olive oil. I will have no processed food. I mean, nothing. So I'll have like rice, like minimally processed stuff, but not out of a package. I don't eat processed food. So yeah, and then no dairy. And that's highly personal. For me personally, my skin doesn't love it. I think it's inflammatory for me, so I don't eat it. I also think that cheese has an addictive component that is very subtle, but I'm sensitive enough to it. So I
Yeah.
just eat cheese.
Yeah, a lot of people find that this mix of fat and salt and the texture
Mhm.
of cheese, and for some people of nuts, salted nuts because they're crunchy, and there's that mix
Yeah,
of fat and salt as well, which is a man-made mix or
yeah,
an industry-made mix, I should say. A lot of people find that, yeah, those foods are triggering because of that kind of unnatural mix that fires up their dopamine in their brain. So even
yeah.
if they're so-called healthy foods, air quotes, for some people, their behavior with them is not healthy.
You're exactly right. Yeah, it's interesting. The more that I'm in this, the more that I'm talking to people about what their trigger foods are, the more I realize that we are so uniquely different.
Absolutely.
It's amazing the stuff that I can eat. Like, for example, nuts. I have a very neutral feeling about nuts. Nuts are not a problem for me, but if I ever have sugar, like if I ever have sugar, it just really it lights up a part of my brain. The reward system, like you said, the dopamine is just like, and then it's there's not enough in the world actually. There's not enough sugar in the world for me. And so this is what I like to tell myself. I have had enough sugar for 3 lifetimes. I truly have. If you
Yeah.
take all the sugar that I ate over my sugar addiction period and you put it in an Excel spreadsheet, it's enough for 3 lifetimes. And so I've already told myself I've been there, done that. I'm going to go forward now and not eat anymore.
Yeah,
That's my
absolutely.
plan.
I often tell the participants in my program, you don't actually need to taste the cookie or the whatever it is. You've had hundreds of them in your life.
Yes,
You know what it tastes like. So it's sometimes we
exactly.
kind of we talk to ourselves and we say, well, I just want to have one more because I love the taste. And these
Mm,
are what I teach is like self-sabotage,
yeah,
internal chatter. And what you say is true. You've had enough sugar for more than one lifetime. But here's the question that comes
totally.
back really often, or the comment that I hear really often, which is, um, doesn't it feel boring to eat the same
Mm.
foods over and over again?
Wow. No, let me tell you something. So first of all, you know that when you eliminate ultra processed foods, like these bliss point foods that the food industry has spent billions of dollars to make us love, when you eliminate that, your taste buds change in like 14 days. You probably know. Is it 14 days?
Yeah, apparently.
Yes. Yeah. And then they acclimate to the more nuanced, subtle flavors. So when I have my avocado mash on my eggs and my millet this morning, It is ridiculously good. You know why? Because we were designed to eat whole food. And when we cut out and eliminate the rest, it naturally happens. Let me tell you when it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen if you eat, a bowl of frosted cornflakes and then try to eat a salad at lunch. Of course, the cornflakes taste better. But if you have a lifetime or a lifestyle rather of eating these whole foods, they are the treat themselves. Listen, I know it sounds crazy because in our culture, you walk into the store and the food, it is just obscene. Let's be real. The food in our food supply, it's obscene. And you walk in there and you're like, how could anything top this? As soon as you eliminate it and don't eat it because it is literally poison, not just to our bodies, but to our brains. We want to live lives having healthy brains and metabolic systems. It is poison. Once you eliminate the poison, then you will not feel bored by the huge variety that is available to you in the full spectrum of what we are able to eat that we should be eating. It's real food. You can
Yeah.
eat real food. You just can't
Yeah.
eat not real food.
It's almost as if the processed foods industry has made us consumers believe that we need their type of products. Don't grace them with the word food,
Yes.
to have fun in life. And that in the absence of all these foods, which most of them contain added sugars and whatnot, in their absence, life is gray and boring.
Yes, of course they want us to think that because it's what is padding their pockets. It is a lie. And listen, we have to educate ourselves. When I realized that I was addicted to sugar, I actually got pretty angry. And I was reading all the books, Salt, Sugar, Fat by Michael Moss. There's so many great books that I'm sure that you have read as well. And those books will show you how they're growing taste buds in their lab. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but this really is happening. And the reason that I get so animated about it is because I have children who also are being victimized by the food industry. And they are being told, you're not going to have fun unless you eat this.
Yeah.
And my job is to show them that life is beautiful and big, and that in fact, not only is it beautiful and big without sugar and processed food, but we can handle hard things without it, because that is what we have to avoid them doing, is going that road of soothing with it. And then they become adults and they're unhealthy because they're not dealing with emotions properly. This is all our job as parents. And that's totally a separate topic that I'm very passionate about, but it is a lie. And we can educate ourselves to where we see it for what it is, because we can have fun without sugar.
Absolutely. And you're living proof, and I'm living proof, and I'm pretty sure there's more of us out there.
Yes, I think so. I'm glad you said that, Netta, because when I first found out that I was addicted to sugar, I was that 30-year-old woman, 30 something, late 30s, with candy in her purse at her son's baseball practice.
Mm-hmm.
That is crazy. And I thought I was the only one. And I went online and I found out very quickly that I am not the only one. And it's very important that whoever is listening to this, it is so important that you know that you're not alone. No matter what you've done with food, you are not alone, and there is help. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny, not funny, ha. It's funny that there are thousands, or I would say hundreds of thousands, or even millions of us
Yes.
with food addiction, or call it what you will, it doesn't really matter about semantics, but who are feeling that we are alone. And we're not, because there's hundreds of thousands or even millions of us with this type of relationship to sugar, where we feel that we don't have a choice, that we are powerless. And here we are with this message. Here you are on this podcast with the message, you're not alone, and you do have the power to do something about it, to change things.
Exactly. You have the power, and also don't feel shame about it. don't feel shame. Because when I first was like, I'm addicted to sugar, that is so lame. I would almost rather have any other problem. Who wants to be like, I can't have a piece of cake because I might want all the cake, That's not very fun. And I felt a lot of shame around it. And I'm telling you, I lean into that. Even now, I'm trying to help people overcome their sugar and processed food addiction and live in the freedom that God calls them to. And even now, I still experience a little bit of shame, a little bit of embarrassment. Like, gosh, what do we want to think if they think she can't have sugar? There is no shame. This is a addiction, just like alcohol addiction, just like drug addiction. The results are different. We're not gonna eat wedding cake at our best friend's wedding and get wasted on cake and ruin her wedding. Or we're not gonna, die on the spot after eating half a dozen donuts. But I'm telling you, the results of sugar addiction are just as devastating. It is a slow, incremental march to this, very, very sad end. I mean, I have someone close to me, Netta, who has undergone amputations because of type 2 diabetes. And people think it's this far off thing. Let me tell you how it happens. You don't just get amputated because you don't get, a toe or a limb amputated because you have, high blood sugar. You have that happen because your body cannot heal. It is so metabolically unhealthy that you get a scratch and the scratch gets infected and it doesn't heal. And soon the infection becomes too much. And they're like, we have to actually take that part of your body off.
Mm-hmm.
That is a serious addiction. That person does not want to have that ailment. It is a lifestyle that has gone awry and they can't get it back into check. It is out of their control because of processed food and sugar in the large part. I mean, maybe not all the time. In a large part, diabetes can be reversed and healed. It can be, and I've seen it happen. So yeah, there should be no shame. There should be a stand up and a me too. And we can do this together, and let's help everyone around us who might be suffering silently.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I also felt shame. I understand what you're talking about. And one of the ways to undo those feelings of shame, for me at least, was to make this podcast and to
Yes.
take that shame, shine a light on it, and say, this is who I am. I accept who I am. And that kind of attracted so many others who finally stood up and said, yeah, this is my relationship with sugar, and I feel more free without sugar in my life.
Yes. And doesn't it help you? That's the coolest thing about opening up about our problems, is that when we share what is going on with us, we are benefited as much as the person listening. What do they say? They say to keep it, you have to give it away. And
Yeah,
I'm feeling that more and more in my life.
fantastic. Fantastic. And if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Yes, they can find me on sarahgraced.com. It's spelled just like it sounds, GRACED. And I have a Facebook group, which is Overcoming Sugar and Processed Food Addiction, a Christian support group. But everyone's welcome. We welcome all walks of life. I have, an amazing group in there who's so supportive and wonderful, because guess what? We're not alone. We're just not alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
You're very inspiring, and your story and your outlook on life is very inspiring, Sarah. Thank you.
Netta, you too. Thank you. You're wonderful. And like I said before the podcast started, your voice, I just turn it on just to listen, just to be soothed. So get some kind of like recording out there that we can have like meditation playing. That would be lovely. Like
Okay.
affirmations,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good idea. Okay. I'm on it.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so
Sarah, so
much.
much. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I loved this episode with Sarah because she's a bit of an exception for her background when she was a child of not having access to sugar and feeling neutral about it, not even missing it. And it was only later in her life that she realized that she did have these crutches to deal with her pain. physical, and emotional. And now Sarah knows exactly which foods to stay away from because they're triggers for her. And she's also a wonderful role model for her kids. And she's living that freedom from cravings. And you can get to that feeling of freedom too. In fact, that's exactly why I created the Freedom from Cravings Formula program. It's a program that's specifically designed for women over 50 who want to get rid of cravings and feel more in control around food, especially sugar and comfort foods. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you get control over cravings so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of a restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life where you're finally ready to look after yourself, let's chat. You can hop on a free clarity call with me at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on the big green button, Schedule a Clarity Call. We'll have a quick 30-minute one-on-one chat where you'll be able to tell me more about your challenges and goals, and we'll be able to see how the Freedom from Cravings Formula program can help you. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.